The furry community is one of the oldest and largest subcultures to exist on the entire internet, and from an outside perspective, it's very easy to make the mistake of assuming they're a united group of people who share similar ideals and opinions. You know, the majority of furries are pretty left-wing people, they're pretty socially progressive guys, they're not trying to rile up anyone, they're really not right-wing. It's pretty rare to see a right-wing furry, but when you do see them, it's like, holy shit. This guy's probably crazy, because it's not like normal right wing. It's not even like kind of far right. It's like fucking out there. And as with any community online, infighting and drama is a common occurrence in the fandom, with some committing actions so severe that they become infamous across the internet as a whole. Over the past decade, political discourse, more specifically discourse centered around American politics, has infiltrated every corner of the World Wide Web ever since like the Trump election and Gamergate. Everything online is apparently political now. And so it should come as no surprise that arguments regarding the subject also happen with furries. While the vast majority of furries enjoy a non-political existence, free from political controversy at least, there are instances that have occurred where the political divide between the fandom's members have clashed and it's become a forefront of discussion and debate. So today we'll be discussing one of the most infamous instances of this occurring, and how these differences caused a domino effect that resulted in the collapse of an entire convention, revealing the dark past of multiple community members, and once again putting furries in the crosshairs of the mainstream media for all the wrong reasons. But before we delve into the major players in this story and the eventual fallout, we have to go back to the beginning. In the early 2000s, as furries began to slowly grow in number, a small group of individuals located in the Denver, Colorado area decided they would create a convention in order to accommodate the growing furry population in the state. This new convention, dubbed Rocky Mountain Furcon, was organized by a group known as the Mid-America Anthropomorphics and Arts Corporation, and was first scheduled to take place in 2006, but was subsequently moved to 2007 due to potential scheduling conflicts with Anthrocon, which is another furry convention that announced similar attendance dates that you guys are probably familiar with. The first convention was initially chaired by an individual known as Kahuki Leiru, but he would step down the following year, with another individual named Soren Cat taking over. Look, I know my name is Turkey Tom, but like, these furry names are a little out of control. Like, can't you just be like Blue Dog or some shit? Do you have to be whatever this is? I mean, Blue Fall, for all their faults, like memorable, easy to pronounce name for Westerners. What the is Kahuki Leiru? What's going on, big guy? From the very beginning, Rocky Mountain Furcon was plagued with issues. The first convention failed to garner enough people to fulfill the block requirements set by the hotel, meaning that year's convention operated at a significant financial loss. However, while the event was almost canceled altogether, furries rallied and began donating money to save it, and Rocky Mountain Furcon was said to continue the following year. From then on, things went relatively smoothly, with RMFC slowly gaining traction over the years and becoming a relatively successful but niche event. While far from being as popular as some of its contemporaries, the space still served as a place for furry enthusiasts in the Colorado area to gather, eventually reaching attendance of over 1,500 people at its peak. For almost a decade, the convention would avoid major controversy, but little did they know that the storm was brewing that would utterly destroy not only the convention itself, but bring to light some of the fandom's most deranged members, with the entire ordeal originating with the creation of an infamous furry group known as the Furry Raiders. At the same time that the Rocky Mountain Furcon was finding its footing, another group of furries was beginning to take shape. In the late 2000s, a Second Life group was founded and spearheaded by an individual named Lee Allen Miller, who went by the username StarFoxAceFox. Over time, the group would grow in size and begin to attract more and more furries. Notably, in 2016, Foxler bought out 100 seats in a theater for the movie Zootopia and handed out tickets for free, which led to the group garnering even more support. If you look at the mission statement on their website, it reads, "We are committed to upholding the values of free expression within the furry community by providing an open and welcoming organization free of exclusion and prejudice based on race, sex, creed, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or political affiliation." From an outside perspective, this seems like a stereotypical group of furries who are only interested in having a good time. So why then is such a seemingly innocuous group so controversial to the point that people call them Nazis every time they're brought up in conversation? Well, to understand that, you gotta look further into their logo. On its own, it's fairly innocuous, simply being a paw print on a white circular background. However, the logo is often paired with an armband that's worn by many members of the furry community, particularly the Raiders group. While the armbands now come in different colors, the first and most common of them is red, with art created for the group also depicting the logo on a red background. Many believe this is a deliberate attempt to mirror the armbands worn by Wehrmacht soldiers, as well as the, the N-word flag. Not that N-word, the other N-word. As the group began to grow, so too did the criticism, with most of the controversy surrounding their leader, Star Fox Ace Fox, who also goes by the name of Foxler Nightfire. Foxler is possibly one of the most controversial and hated individuals in the furry fandom for a number of reasons. As he became more notable, many individuals started to dig deeper into his past, and they began to uncover extremely alarming posts that set off multiple red flags. To start with, archives of a live journal made by Foxler from 2005 tell the story of an online romantic relationship he had with a 13-year-old girl, while admitting in the same paragraph that he was also 18 years of age. Yikes, Scoob! I'm 18 years old. Now, Hannah and all her friends knew I was 18, and they didn't mind at all, so well, bro, took it to her mother that got mad and talked with Hannah, so that sucked. After waiting for 4 hours, she came back all upset, crying a bit about how she doesn't want to lose me, and her mother put this Yahoo thing on her computer to make sure she wasn't talking to me, so I helped her get it off, and she said before I did, I love talking to you, I never want to go because you were the sweetest guy ever. And I was almost in shock hearing this from her. Her friend said the same thing when I was talking to her, and they both like me, but when she said that and put a heart next to it, I knew she wanted more. I'm like, I got my sweetie Chantel here, and Hannah, only 13, cries. So this guy is like, he's kind of a fucking weirdo, right? I think that's obvious here, right? Member of the LCP fandom, shout out. In addition to this, users uncovered archives of a Beast Forum profile with the same username as him, which strangely enough managed to get him banned from the site. For those of you who are unaware and haven't been delving in like the worst, most disgusting aspects of the furry community, Beast Forum was a website dedicated to the discussion and promotion of bestiality, as the name implies. This, combined with various odd social media posts where he talks about trapping children and commenting on his female dog not being able to feel pleasure after getting spayed, has resulted in many individuals online characterizing him as a degenerate freak, and rightfully so, because he is one. It should be noted that Foxler has denied these accusations over the years, but this has done very little to quell the criticism against him, and despite the severity of these claims, most people within the furry fandom are aware of his existence, not because of his Beast Forum stuff, because that's like a lot of furries, unfortunately, but instead due to his alleged ties to Nazism. One of the most obvious indicators of this is his name. Many believe it to be a combination of the words Fox and Hitler. Foxler, when confronted with this, would later claim that to be false, stating it was actually a combination of the word Fox and his last name, Miller. In addition to this was, of course, the iconography that was mentioned before, and in response to that, Miller said he was completely unfamiliar with N-word symbolism when he chose the logo for the Furry Raiders, and it was impossible for him to be a true N-word due to him being half Thai. If you guys know anything about the alt-right, a lot of them are not white, so it doesn't really matter. That doesn't really mean anything. And over time, multiple other separate instances have led to a significant portion of the furry fandom labeling him as far-right. Foxler has been incredibly forthright about his dislike for SJWs, based, and left-wing individuals in general, getting into countless arguments with people on Twitter about the issue. This in and of itself isn't really unusual, and it's not a sign of him being a or even really right-wing in any way. However, there are multiple instances where he expresses familiarity with the online right that put some of these political posts in a different light. Let's go through a brief rundown of some of his most infamous escapades, and you guys can decide for yourself. And before I get into this, I just want to say, I don't really care if he's far-right or not. I don't really care if he's right-wing. You guys know I have right-wing friends. I don't really give a shit. I just think it's interesting that there's somebody in the furry fandom, which is like ostensibly a pretty like left-wing, progressive, accepting movement, that is also like somehow a far-right dude. Like that's a pretty interesting kind of, dichotomy we've got going here. Kind of a juxtaposition, kind of a silly one at that. In 2012, he made a forum post where he can be seen self-identifying as a furzy, or, I mean, you guys can kind of guess what that means, I think. Later on in 2014, he would make a comment on a YouTube video of a Hitler speech where he explicitly stated that he stood with Hitler and the German people, and there's also a screenshot of another YouTube comment where he said he hated black people and supported the KKK, and that surfaced on Twitter, with his defense being that he was tired and not in the right state of mind at the time. When you're so tired that you become racist, I understand. In 2016, he was ejected from a furry-oriented club due to his refusal to stop wearing his paw print armband, and he had a physical confrontation with another patron as a result of an image of him doing a Sieg Heil while in his fursuit, and that appeared online, further damaging his reputation, obviously. And furries are like generally pretty, like, even among like online communities, they're pretty left-wing, so obviously they're not gonna be cool with that. Even joking about stuff like that, they're totally against it. He also made this rather infamous tweet directed towards Richard Spencer, which many interpreted as an implicit endorsement of his ideals due to him asking for Spencer's approval. In another instance, he would call himself the Hitler of the furry fandom, a quote that many of his detractors have used to their advantage because why wouldn't they? In addition, in a video he posted on his YouTube channel, he admits to trying to join a neo group in order to properly understand what the ideology was all about, though he admitted he was rejected due to his mixed heritage and because of the fact he was a furry.
And I decided to actually get involved with some neo-Nazi groups to see how they were like. You know, can't judge people right away. You gotta go in there and get your hands dirty. Well, your paws dirty. Whoops. And, you know, I signed up for the little form online, paid my $25 membership, and they wanted me to show that I was faithful to Nazism. So I made some comments on YouTube to show this loyalty based on what people express. And I got into it. They asked me a few questions. The first one was, are you white? I'm not white. I'm a mutt, if anybody doesn't know that. I'm part Thai, part German. After that occurred, they also asked me a few other questions, like what this whole furry thing was about. And I said to them, I dress up as an animal. And, you know, I find anthropomorphics hot. And then they were like, get the fuck out.
Guys, the furries are not welcome to the clan meetup. Let it be known. They're not letting them in, okay? The clan is keeping them out. They know what's up.
Fine. Whatever. I'll go do my thing, and you go do your thing.
All of these incidents, along with quite a few others, resulted in Foxler being a pretty controversial figure within the furry space. By extension, this made every other member of the group controversial just by association. Screenshots of members in their Telegram chat posting imagery incorporating their logo also made the rounds online, and that resulted in many within the furry community rejecting and ostracizing the Furry Raiders under the presumption that all of the members held far-right beliefs. This definitely wasn't helped by the fact that others who associated with the group started to garner their own infamy as well. As an example, a furry known as Diesel Raccoon, who is a known associate of the Furry Raiders, came under fire for making controversial statements on Twitter. In 2015, he made this tweet where he talks about feeling nervous at Walmart at night while surrounded by black people, and in the replies he stated it was just another reason to carry a gun. Later on, he would also come under fire after a friend of his replied in a tweet referencing the then recent march on Capitol Hill, saying, "A coup was attempted to overthrow the government and install a dictator as the leader of this country." Diesel ended up replying, "I like you deeply as a friend, and I'm going to choose to not even respond to you. Inflates you, making you big and round." Oh my god. Inflates you, making you big and round. Dude, furries are so crazy, man. These guys are awesome. A screenshot of this exchange would go viral on Twitter soon after, because why wouldn't it? Interestingly, years later, Diesel would denounce the Furry Raiders due to alleged zoophilia and clarified that he didn't support the January 6th attack on the Capitol, though it should be noted he was still associated with the Furry Raiders at the start of their largest controversies. Now, incidents like this would really paint the Furry Raiders in a negative light and resulted in them being labeled a far-right group by their critics and kind of pushed out by the furry community. And when the furry community isn't even willing to accept you, there might be something wrong with you. There might be something going on, right? I think we can agree with that. It should be noted that the Furry Raiders themselves have contested this numerous times, and as mentioned before, still to this day they insist they're a group founded on equality and not hatred or bigotry. These rebuttals fell on deaf ears, however, as the Raiders would soon enter into a larger controversy that would result in their niche group becoming one of the most infamous sects in the furry community. At this point, they were already hated. They would become absolutely despised very soon. In 2016, as the Rocky Mountain Furcon geared up for its next big event, the organization began to look at booking hotel rooms to accommodate attendees. The Furry Raiders took notice, and they decided to pool together their money to book 25% of the rooms available at the hotel before room blocks were even officially open to the public. This was supposedly done in order to allow easier access to the convention by their members to secure, like, they'd have a spot at the convention, basically. Now, this move initially angered and upset a lot of furries, as they saw it as sort of a power grab and an attempt by the Furry Raiders to block out members who were critical of them from attending the convention. This sentiment was also seemingly shared by the RMFC organizers, who contacted the Raiders directly and attempted to convince them to release their hold on said rooms. After allegedly failing to comply, a convention organizer would make a post on social media addressing the situation, where he stated, "Despite direct communications with them, the Denver-based group known as the Furry Raiders declined to drop their reservations at the Crown Plaza. We have exhausted all of the means that we have to officially try to get them to release the rooms, but we're sorry to say that neither the convention nor the hotel currently have policies in place to prevent this behavior, though we strongly disapprove of it." This led to a big wave of backlash towards the Raiders, who seemed to be unwilling to budge from their position. However, on April 14th, 2016, it was publicly announced that they had agreed to relinquish the 25% of the rooms after discussing the issue with RMFC staff, so the convention itself released a correction soon after, basically thanking them. In that statement, we inferred that the Furry Raiders had refused to release the rooms in the room block. This statement statement was not entirely accurate. At the time, the Furry Raiders had stated that the rooms on the block had been given to members and friends, and from that, we infer they were refusing to release any of the rooms they had reserved. Since this statement, the Furry Raiders have begun to cancel some of the unused rooms in their reservation and have stated that they will continue to do so for unused rooms. RMFC would like to apologize to the Furry Raiders for any confusion or antagonism this statement may have caused. After that incident, many furries within the furry community came out in support of the Raiders. You know, they were like, hey, maybe these guys aren't so bad, you know, they're a little bit racist, but, you know, they're good guys, all right. All right, leave Jimmy alone. One of the most notable of these individuals was a man who went by the name 2, who you most likely actually know as the Ranting Griffin. 2 is a self-described furry comedian who had, in the past, performed at some of the largest furry conventions and was well known within the fandom. He himself had been the subject of controversy over time due to his vocal opposition to the social justice movement and because of some jokes he had previously made in rant videos he posted on his YouTube channel, which probably made it easier for him to empathize with the plight of the Furry Raiders, because he's a controversial guy, they're controversial, he's anti-PC, they're anti-PC, so they're like, okay, we're kind of the same guy, right? Let's join forces a little bit. Just as a little side note, 2 is an individual whose history is extensive and worthy of its own video, honestly, but he's most notable in this instance for his commentary on topics relating to the Furry Raiders, and therefore his other unrelated controversies won't be put into focus here, but I might do a video in the future about him because he's an interesting dude. Now, he would release a rant on April 17th, 2016 titled Bird Box No. 1 Furry Raiders, where he discussed the entire incident and summarized some of the available information about the controversy, with his conclusion being that furries within the community were overreacting to the situation. There were those in the community who started to become suspicious about the association between the Raiders and the RMFC staff. Many believe that because the convention refused to ban the Raiders from the event as a whole, that they were actually sympathetic to the Raiders and therefore their ideas and whatever they may believe. This, of course, was only speculation, as with many of their controversies. It was just kind of like, they have the wrong vibe, you know. So the incident would soon be forgotten about as people began to move on with their lives. The event would still be remembered by far-left individuals within the community who refused to let the controversy go and maintained a level of disgust and hatred for the group as a whole, and that would come to a head the following year. In early 2017, a leftist furry made a tweet saying, "Oh yeah, Furry Raiders are a bunch of N-word MFs too, reminder, etc." To which another left-wing furry named Dio Taz Devil replied, "Can't wait to punch these Nazis." Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be doing a lot of punching. Furries are known for being tough and strong and good at fighting. Another user named Olivia jumped in and stated, "Watching you get shot by someone defending themselves from unprovoked assault will be far more entertaining." At this point, another user jumped into the conversation, asking whether the person who had initially replied intended on bringing a gun to the convention, to which they would respond by stating, "Sure hope you're not planning on attacking innocent folks. I fully support legal concealed carry," to which Dio, the individual who had said they wanted to punch Nazis, asked, "Are you threatening to bring a gun to RMFC?" And that's where the conversation ended. Now, I'd like to take a moment here to clarify some things about the Dog Watch Press. While they do present themselves as a news outlet of sorts, the actual writing staff consists of only 2 people, Pacho Fur and Pup Matthias, and many of the articles covering this situation are written by Pacho Fur. This means that many of the articles on the website are biased and slanted in a left-wing direction. This doesn't necessarily delegitimize some of the points and opinions asserted in these articles, but from an outsider's perspective, they should be viewed as more think pieces giving one single perspective about the incident, as opposed to like de facto unbiased views of events than one would normally expect from a traditional news site, because these are really like editorials. It's really an opinion piece. It's more of a blog. It's not really like furry news, because these people have a vested interest in one side of politics, right? So you can't completely take them at their word. Well, things took a pretty unexpected turn when Dio Taz Devil received a cease and desist letter from someone identifying themselves as Kahuki. The contents of this legal notice were, to put it mildly, pretty perplexing and seemed to lack coherent legal grounding or understanding. It was signed with the name Kendall Emery, which led to a shocking revelation that Kendall was listed in a sex offender registry, charged with a felony for criminal contact with a minor. This shed light on his history, suggesting that he had previously held the position of chairman but had stepped down in 2008 due to the severity of the charges. Speculations arose that the furry board staff might have known about his criminal background, yet allowed him to remain active within the community, and this is actually a common problem in the furry community. There's a decent amount of incidents like this. Amidst the escalating drama, the convention's leadership declared the cancellation of RMFC, citing heightened security costs ostensibly linked to Dio's initial threat. Last month, we were faced with a sudden and drastic increase in security costs, amounting to more than a third of our entire existing operating budget. This cost increase stemmed directly from the very public threats of violence against one another by members of this community, as well as the negative backlash from the misinformation spread about the convention, its staff, and attendees. Therefore, Rocky Mountain Furcon 2017 is officially canceled. I will no longer continue to subject my staff and our community to the lies, hate, violence, violence and slander that was disseminated. A board member named Rodney Brian Graff, who went by the moniker Scorch, also claimed that the security fees would have amounted to a staggering $22,000. Notably, Scorch ardently defended Kendall and downplayed the severity of his conviction, wrongly asserting that it would be considered a misdemeanor today. The controversy continued when the Dogpatch Press, an online platform covering furry news, published a series of articles that accused the Furry Raiders of having N-word affiliations, speculating about the RMFC board's ties to the Furry Raiders, and revisited allegations of abuse against Kendall. These articles ignited a firestorm of reactions within the community. Predictably, opinions within the furry community became divided. The Furry Raiders faced significant backlash, while anti-social justice warrior furries directed their ire towards Dio. In response to the mounting pressure, Dio claimed that her initial threat was actually just a joke, and she never actually wanted to attend the convention, much less bring a firearm there or anything like that. Amidst the chaos, a faction of furries sympathetic to the Furry Raiders redirected blame towards Dio. They asserted that she had been responsible for contacting the hotel and Denver police, resulting in the con's cancellation. Dio refuted these claims on her Twitter account, further fueling the ongoing controversy, and it just kind of snowballed from there, right? The furries getting a convention canceled is like, you know, a concert goer getting their like one concert they go to a year canceled, or like a music festival canceled. Like, furries love these conventions. This is where they go and do drugs and party and stick it in each other's butts and meet other furries. Like, this is like the highlight of their fucking year. And so for something like this to happen is extremely upsetting to them. As the narrative expanded, scrutiny towards the Mid-America Anthropomorphic and Art Corporation, or MAAAC, also known as wait, is that mid? 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 Skibbity, you're so skibbity, you're so phantom tox. Ah! Well, anyway, the nonprofit organization responsible for organizing the con is the MAAAC, and it came to light they had failed to file tax returns from 2008 to 2015, leading to the revocation of their tax exemption status in 2011. This obviously raised questions about the organization's financial practices and transparency, and as people kept digging, a peculiar detail emerged. Kendall had signed the cease and desist with a red thumbprint, prompting speculation that he might be a sovereign citizen. Now, for those of you who are unaware, sovereign citizens is basically like a movement that dates back to the early 90s, in which people have convinced themselves that they are above the law, and that by giving someone money, they can learn the magical words that will free them from the justice system, so they don't have to pay taxes, listen to police officers, or even go to jail. Some of my favorite videos of these guys are videos where they'll be like pulled over for speeding or something, and the cop will say, "How's it going tonight?" And they'll accuse them of, like, you know, driving too fast or whatever, because that's what they were doing, and they'll be like, "Nah, I was just traveling, bro. Nah, bro, I was just traveling in the car. I was going to the store." Like, they somehow are convinced that they weren't driving, or they just refuse to say that they were driving, because instead in their mind they were traveling because they're a sovereign citizen, and the cop didn't see them moving the wheel or something, even though they were the only person in the car. So it's like, were they really driving? I think they're right, actually. Mr. Medicare has made a pretty decent series covering the ridiculous videos that have come out of this movement, and this clip pretty much exemplifies it perfectly. One of the magic words that sovereign citizens say is, "Am I being detained?" which in their mind makes them completely invulnerable against any kind of law enforcement. So when they're being arrested, they'll be like, "Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
Am I being detained? What's that? Am I being detained?
Am I being detained?
Are you educated?
Am I being detained?
Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
The claim that Kendall was a part of this was initially dismissed as an outlandish conspiracy theory, but it gained a lot of traction when it was revealed that Scorch, the people who had downplayed Kendall's criminal charges, was definitely a sovereign citizen. Given Scorch's close association with Kendall, this theory gained a lot of credibility. Now, this isn't the end of this story, and eventually people discovered that Kahuki and Scorch hosted parties at their house where they would all watch adult videos together. In the description for the event, it stated that teenagers under the age of 18 are encouraged to come and watch with them, but it's unknown if any actually showed up, but even the intention I'd say is enough to call them, you know, gross. Another furry gives an anonymous retelling of what their experience with Scorch was like after moving in with him. They said, "I moved in with Scorch because I was a dumbass, mentally ill, and vulnerable person looking for answers and mad at my parents. I offered to be his housekeeper for food and board, essentially. So like, I moved into his house and I have to agree to be re-educated. Being a dumbass stoner, vulnerable to suggestion and open to conspiracy theories at the time, I was like, I don't know, seems legit. Eventually, he starts showing me hour-long videos about how everything is a lie, how corporate shells are made in people's names, and how there's like thousands of dollars for everyone to claim. At this point, I'm kind of terrified and feel a bit stuck. I finally, at long last, swallow my damn pride and call my mom and tell her everything that was going on. She was horrified. We picked a day he would be working out, and she came in a frenzy, and we packed up all my shit before he would get back. So I guess this guy believes that like Scorch is like a crazy conspiracy theorist, sovereign citizen type guy, and he just wanted to get out of there. He felt like he was kind of in too deep at that point, you know? In the midst of all this controversy, well-known figures within the furry community, such as the Ranting Griffin, and others took to YouTube to defend the Furry Raiders and criticize Dio. The Ranting Griffin's defense of the Furry Raiders included downplaying Kendall's allegations and implying they were not as severe as initially portrayed, based on Scorch's dubious claim that the charges would only be considered a misdemeanor today, which, like, you still had unlawful contact with a minor, right? Like, that's still bad. The following is an explanation of why his analysis of the criminal charges is very wrong.
Dio calls him a child rapist repeatedly, but the charge is criminal sexual contact with a minor, which could mean one of 24 different fucking things, up to and including consensual sex with someone under 18. It's a 25-year-old charge, so it happened when he was 30, even though they show him here looking like a creepy old man. That's pretty disingenuous, I think. And I'm sure Dio is telling people that he's a child rapist because if anyone says anything in his defense, then they'll be supporting child rape, which I'm sure is exactly what's gonna happen to me now, even though if he was a child rapist, it would have been listed in his charges as sexual assault, like in this example, and not criminal contact with a minor. And in fact, people who are close to him say that there was no sexual intercourse at all.
Now, it's important to clarify that these claims are not entirely accurate. The crime that Kendall was convicted of is clearly labeled as criminal sexual contact with a minor in the state of New Mexico on his registry profile, because this guy is on the registry. He's listed there. If you look up what this actually means, it clearly states criminal contact of a minor is the unlawful and intentional touching of or applying force to the intimate parts of a minor, or the unlawful and intentional causing of a minor to touch one's intimate parts. While there have been changes to the statute over the years, every one of the changes is purely aesthetic and was done to make the legislation more concise and easier to understand. It had absolutely nothing to do with the severity of the crime. The charges for this are just as severe today as they were in 1993. While the exact specifics of the situation are unknown, the crime he was convicted of 100% involved physical contact with a minor. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm in no way attempting to imply that these individuals are supportive of this kind of behavior, as they were simply relaying information they thought was accurate, but that still doesn't mean their commentary isn't deserving of scrutiny. Like, they did get this wrong. This guy did do something really bad. The Ranting Griffin's argument is that Kendall isn't a literal child because it isn't explicitly listed on his registry profile, and that's, like, obviously a very flawed argument, because if you look at the individual profile of the other man he shows in the video, you can see that his crime took place in Colorado, not New Mexico, as is listed on SA on a child F4, meaning that the crime was a class 4 felony. If you look up what this means in Colorado law, you'll see that it refers to the engagement of a child under 15. Now, this particular legal website that's dedicated to Colorado law also points out that this is the underage equivalent of Colorado's unlawful contact law, meaning that this individual committed almost the exact same crime that Kendall did. Regardless of how Kendall went about it, he still physically assaulted a minor in a way that resulted in him getting a felony, meaning the crime was severe and disgusting either way. Like, you can't downplay this. I don't know why this person is so obsessed with, like, trying to downplay what this guy did. It's obvious what he did. We know what he did. Like, just drop this guy. Why do you need to defend him anymore? He's a freak. Trying to make it an argument purely based on semantics and brushing off the severity of the allegations and essentially downplaying them is an incredibly irresponsible way to go about anything, to go about using your platform, right? If there was no conviction and it was all speculation with no definitive proof, then of course that would be different, but his criminal record does not suggest innocence. I mean, this is the law. We know what he did. Now, one argument you could make is about whether or not Kendall's conviction was relevant to the collapse of RMFC, or if it was relevant in criticism of the Furry Raiders, but at least in my opinion, the notion that a sex offender was crucial in the founding of the convention and was at least somewhat involved with the organizers is more than enough to permanently tarnish the name of any organization, whether they were actually running the convention or not. At the end of the day, the claim from Scorch that this was just a small incident or that the crime would be considered a misdemeanor today is categorically false and potentially a malicious attempt to spread misinformation about the case to downplay it. I mean, in my opinion, that's definitely what it was. Returning from the shadows of Hyperborea, Foxler would agree to do an interview with another furry YouTuber, to which he vehemently denied the allegations levied against him, asserting that he had not engaged in the actions attributed to him. Particularly, he refuted the notion that the armband, which had been widely criticized for its resemblance, was conceived with such intentions. Foxler attributed the armband's origin to the aforementioned Second Life. According to him, this group was responsible for its inception, and any perceived resemblance to any other historical symbols was purely coincidental. Any other criticism he had received was also denied by him in any way, and he and the interviewer seemed to almost be friends with how, like, friendly they were in the interview. It wasn't really much of a scathing thing.
Why are you taking this and saying, oh, I'm an actual Nazi?
Yeah, you're an actual Nazi you're supposed to hate gay people, you're supposed to hate black people, but yet, you know, yeah, you're not. You don't hate black people and you don't hate gay people. So go figure.
No, my mate's he's black and I Yeah, so I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Now, Soren Cat, the person serving as the head of the convention, also stepped into the spotlight. In an interview with the Dogpatch Press, he echoed a sentiment that had become a recurrent theme throughout the controversy. He cited security costs as the primary factor leading to the closure of the convention. When confronted with inquiries about the Furry Raiders, he expressed a deliberate effort to distance himself from the group and their members. He conveyed a desire to avoid interactions with them and suggested that their initial goals might have been corrupted by a small faction within their ranks, and the greater organization may not be that bad. He said that if their intentions were genuinely community-oriented, they would gracefully withdraw from the scene instead of making this big stink for the convention and causing all these issues, right? I really try not to think about them or interact with them or their members right now. I think that whatever it was they set out to do originally has been corrupted by a handful of bad apples, and if they really wanted to do something for the community, they would bow out gracefully. Yet, as Soren Cat attempted to detach himself from the Furry Raiders, the controversy's waves continued to spread. The narrative of Nazi furries was getting bigger and bigger, and it began to really take root within the mainstream media. Notably, outlets like the Rolling Stone and the Daily Beast picked up on the story, thrusting the furry community into an unexpected spotlight. The once contained controversy had now spilled into the broader public consciousness, casting the entire situation as a political struggle within the fandom. Rolling Stone, of course, interviewed Foxler and ended the article with, "Miller, who remains perhaps one of the most polarizing figures of the furry community, claims that he has been trolled, slandered, and harassed and threatened over the past year. From his computer, Miller watches the online bickering, and he is filled with shame to see the MAAAC and RMFC crumble. For me, being a furry is a personal outlet to understand the real world," says Miller. "Others find it fun, others find it spiritual, and others go for sexual purposes. People take on completely different characteristics, and sometimes I can't even tell who's in the suit. I'm the same person in and out of the suit." This was now a huge issue, and infighting started to become common amongst almost every furry. Within the furry community itself, discussions and debates ensued as people grappled with assigning blame for the convention's failure. The blame game started with fervent supporters of different viewpoints arguing their various cases, and the contention reached a climax as each side attempted to frame the narrative in a way that best aligned with their perspective or political beliefs. However, as with many controversies, the coping and seething eventually did begin to wane. Over time, the heated debates simmered down, and the initial anger that surrounded the RMFC controversy began to fade. Public interest dwindled, and the once all-encompassing discussions lost momentum. In the wake of this controversy, the Rocky Mountain Furcon met its complete demise. It was a conclusion that seemed inevitable, marking the end of an era. The organization responsible for its operation disbanded, leaving behind memories, controversies, and another degenerate shit stain on the furry fandom. This wasn't the end of the furry conventions in Denver, though. As the dust settled, a new chapter unfolded. Emerging from the ashes of their RMFC controversy, fresh opportunities arose in the form of new Denver-based Furcons. And surely, after the catastrophe that was the RMFC, after all of this after the, the guy being caught for being a sex offender, after Foxler getting in surely this would all die down and the Furry Raiders would just disband and go their separate ways, right? No more controversy. The video's not over, so. By 2019, the Furry Raiders somehow managed to get in trouble again, but this time at a different convention. Apparently, Milo Yiannopoulos attempted to troll furries by attending Midwest Fur Fest along with the Proud Boys by using the Furry Raiders as an in to the community. Known for his involvement in the Gamergate saga and having cultivated an audience predominantly leaning towards the right, Milo was no stranger to controversy. However, by 2019, his trajectory took a downturn. Video clips emerged that featured him suggesting that sexual relationships between adult men and boys as young as 13 could be deemed perfectly consensual. These comments led to a rapid downfall of his career, obviously. He lost his book deal, his job at Breitbart, and opportunities to speak at significant events like CPAC. Just like that, literally the biggest up-and-coming figure in the right-wing media met a swift end to his career. With his reputation tarnished and his mainstream platform dwindling, Milo wanted a way back into the spotlight. So in a slightly controversial move, like I said, he set his sights on the furry community. He was going to attend Midwest Fur Fest, one of the largest furry conventions in the United States, using the Furry Raiders as a gateway to infiltrate. The Furry Raiders, who were already pretty controversial, gave him an entry point and also gave the Proud Boys an entry point. As he kept planning, it became evident that Milo had built connections, even to the point of being offered one of their fursuits as a means of disguise. With this plan in motion, Milo announced his intentions to his followers through a screenshot of an email on his Telegram group chat. He teased his audience with the prospect of hosting a panel titled "The Pollen politics of fur and encouraged people attending the convention to reach out to him for various activities. Obviously, this master plan didn't remain unnoticed for too long. People started to complain online, and the Midwest Fur Fest put out a statement saying, "We received a number of mentions and support tickets today. We assure all attendees that your safety is of the utmost importance and is not being ignored. We are investigating all concerns being relayed to us." Soon after, Milo would have his ticket revoked and get banned from the event, along with the other Proud Boys that planned on attending, because obviously they were. Rolling Stone again covered this story, and in an interview, Milo said, "I've heard nothing from the organizers and have no reason to suppose a handful of well-meaning but misguided activists will be allowed to derail my attendance. The furry community is a welcoming, diverse world, and I know they will make space for a disabled, queer, Jewish immigrant with a black husband." So, yeah, he's playing that one. As a result of these events, the Furry Raiders once again faced backlash from the community. Their association with Milo and the controversy that surrounded his attempted infiltration of Midwest Fur Fest was just another thing added to the list of reasons why they were outcased, but it wouldn't be the worst. Around the same time, Foxler would eventually get arrested in 2019 for something he allegedly did in 2015. As the court document put it, he was enticing a minor and was subsequently booked. Big shock, right? Big shock on that one. All of this would be documented on Dogpatch, which also revealed that apparently the Furry Raiders tried to undermine the case out of loyalty to him. New court documents show how Miller's inner circle tried to undermine the case by intimidating a witness. If the plan works, the witness would be lured into a trap, framed, harassed, and extorted, and pulled out of Miller's case. Dogpatch Press would be baited into false reporting to hurt the victim. Behind the scenes, police traced a threat sent by VoIP and found it came from Furry Raiders. Police also received a forged document asking to cancel prosecution against Miller. It's a reminder of the very first Dogpatch Press headline about the group intimidation with a fake legal letter. By 2020, Foxler's arrest would get others to start investigating more into the Furry Raiders, and 2 people actually got arrested because of it. Jacob Kovar and Matthew C., who were closely associated with the group, were arrested. Jacob's involvement in this was marked by his deception of minors. He had allegedly posed as both a 14 and 16-year-old to manipulate and lure unsuspecting young individuals. After police intervention, he found himself facing no less than 8 felony charges. Kovar's role with the Furry Raiders seemed to position him as an integral part of their operation, closely linked to Foxler and seen as almost his right-hand man. You could say he was Foxler's top guy. Shortly after Kovar's arrest, Matthew C. also faced apprehension for his involvement in child-related offenses. Matthew had a pre-existing history of such offenses, revealing a disturbing pattern of behavior that raised questions about his intentions and actions within the furry community. Disturbingly, investigations into the situation revealed that Matthew was connected to an even wider network of people with similar inclinations. It was found he also had ties to people who associated with zoo sadism, which is a criminal subculture that Kiro the Wolf was a part of, as you guys know. That's basically just centered around the abuse and exploitation of animals for, their own sick urges, basically. Some other names you guys probably recognize are Tuscan, Snake Thing, who's also known as Levi Simmons, and who is a convicted file. Kiro the Wolf, of course, I just mentioned. There's Kiro's zoo sadist boyfriend, and even Spark Dalmatian, who is a multiple-time World Series winning convicted PDF file. And all these people were linked through different group chats and connections, and it was just a giant mess when the zoo sadism leaks came out. If you want more information on this, I've actually done a few videos on my main channel about them. Check out the Kiro the Wolf video. Really, that's most of the information you're going to want. Or not want, because it is pretty gross. Surprisingly, the legal outcome for Foxler came quicker than expected. Somehow he managed to evade all charges due to a technicality, leaving many in the furry community outraged. Foxler's response on social media added another layer of confusion, as he insinuated that the police had granted him a lenient pass, which further infuriated people in the community because they felt like he got off. Yep, been there. I get labeled all the time for crimes I haven't committed. Even the legal system gave me pass saying I'm free to go. Still isn't good for the furry fandom. They say the state was wrong. Lol. Now, Foxler is free to this day, actually. Despite his insane history and the controversies that had plagued the Furry Raiders, they managed to organize and host a convention in 2021 under the banner of Free for All. This was done in collaboration with another furry named Magnus Deridian, along with a group of furries who had been canceled for various reasons. The event was posited as a gathering point for furries who had been banned from other conventions due to their actions or associations. And the idea behind this endeavor was to provide a space for those who had been ostracized, but obviously the outcome was clear to see. The reception to the event was overwhelmingly negative, as the community at large had not forgotten the serious allegations and associations that had further tarnished the public image of furries. I mean, holding a convention like this, right, to like someone who's a more normal furry or a less evil furry, right, or just like, a harmless person, obviously this is going to piss them off because public media attention around this is going to paint them all like they're a bunch of sex offenders and racists, right? By September 15th, 2021, AWOO or OWOO announced that their original venue had become unavailable, attributing the change change to the intolerant dark side of the anthro fandom. The threat of civil unrest due to the faction's actions was cited as the cause. Critics countered, suggesting Awoo's own staff may have contributed by engaging in online threats, including violent ones, and why am I saying Awoo? The AWOO clarified that these contentious posts were not made by their staff members, highlighting that certain individuals like KK Clyde and Kanai Lupine were actually involved. These people were involved, but it wasn't everyone. The debate unfolded in the context of discussions around Free-for-All 2022 in their unofficial chat and in a separate online space. Ultimately, though, they got the venue back, actually, and the fact they were even able to secure a venue, despite their checkered history, raised a lot of eyebrows and led to renewed discussions about accountability and the ethical implications of providing a platform and venue for such individuals. I mean, if we know that multiple people attending this convention are like evil people, evil freaks, obviously there's going to be concerns about what's going down there, right? And it's once again a bad look for the average furry who just wants to hang out and isn't really a bad person, because then that just makes them all look horrible, right? And the media loves that because they can jump on the story and report on them negatively. Now, as of me recording this video, 3 years have passed, and these conventions still have somehow become a feature of the furry landscape. Obviously, attendance is pretty low, with an estimated 50 participants at these events, and it's very telling that despite the passage of time, the majority of the furry community has consistently expressed disdain for anyone associating with or attending these cons. It remains perplexing that despite the consistent pushback from the community, these events have persisted. It's almost like just out of pure spite for furries not wanting them to exist, this smaller group of furries needs to have these events, right? They love it. They love the hate a little bit. They love to troll, maybe. Sex offender trolling. So I can't even joke about that. Many had anticipated that the weight of public opinion and the disturbing allegations would eventually lead to the shutdown of these gatherings, but as recently as in the last year, another iteration of this event took place, once again reigniting the conversations and anger that the Furry Raiders still exist and are still going. The legacy carries on. The events surrounding the Furry Raiders, their associates, and the controversies they've been embroiled in have left an undeniable mark on the furry community. The intersection of allegations, criminal charges, and the establishment of contentious events has been just another thing to add to the already tainted reputation of furries overall. And as time goes on, it's still unknown whether the community's collective pushback will eventually succeed in shutting down these gatherings, or whether they'll just keep happening. Free-for-All still has an active Twitter account to this day, so that remains to be seen. It seems to me like these guys are going to keep pushing on because they just, they want to be furries and they want to continue being who they are, despite the fact that they're kind of, some of them at least are pretty evil people, but I don't think they're going to back down anytime soon. It seems like the Furry Raiders and Free-for-All are here to stay. And they've certainly left their mark, and they've certainly allowed me to have a funny, cool story to tell today, but I don't know if that's really worth everything that happened. Oh wait, it is to me because I'm a YouTuber, WRiz. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike, drop a comment down below. I've been Tom Dark, or Turkey Tom, or Tom IRL, or Skibbity Riz, or whatever you want to call me, and I'll see you all in tomorrow's video. Bye. And hey, before you go, if you guys like this video about furries, check out the new Tom IRL video where I visited a furry convention and got kicked out. It's pretty funny. Okay, bye. Your mom. And be sure to become a member. For $5 a month, they get the members only podcasts and exclusive videos that only members get. Thanks so much for your support.
No